So good evening, dear colleagues. Welcome, Mark, for sharing with us what you have experienced and what you have developed. We are very happy that you share with us that the way that you have developed is a possibility to help participants really practice. Because in essence, when we talk, that is what I get from your MindfulText. It is a motivational way for each teacher to tailor messages to their participants in order to help them really practice. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks for that introduction. Yeah. I'll start sharing my screen now.
Yeah, you are here because you are practicing mindfulness, but you're also an entrepreneur, understanding that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So if a person practices mindfulness, that's the only way to be able to have the effects of mindfulness. You know that as a practitioner, and you know it as an entrepreneur, that you have to deliver as an entrepreneur, and otherwise your clients will vote with their feet. Now, our teachers in the mindfulness community, in the eamba community, they have been suffering from this decrease in participants, and having a tool to help them practice could set the teachers who use it apart from the teachers who follow the traditional way. And this is the main reason why today I'm very happy you're here to share with us how your text messaging formula could help us to engage our audience and also to grow it. So please, with this small introduction, if you need any other introduction to make us understand what you're doing, you're welcome to say so. And otherwise, get going. Thank you.
Thank you, Katarina. Yes, and so I'll go through an agenda here as well, but thank you for that introduction. And today I'm just going to go over a brief introduction of myself and share a little bit more about why text messaging is interesting. And I'll share some templates that you can use without any platform besides your phone or WhatsApp or SMS to start engaging your clients or your organizations in a way that we see helping people build the habit of mindfulness. And after that, I'll go over two different types of surveying strategies that we find very helpful for communicating with your audience and giving you ways to think about taking your product in new directions. And then I'll just cover a few different tools that I think are useful to get to know, as well as one tool that you don't really need to get to know in order to use other tools. And then I'll just share a little bit about some collaboration opportunities. And so thank you everyone for joining here. So my name is Mark Montalban. I'm the founder and CEO of MindfulText. I have a deep entrepreneurial background, and so I worked for a startup accelerator called the Founder Institute. You can see an image of me down there in it was called the Archimoto vehicle. One of the founder of that company is a mentor at Founder Institute, and so I've been working with many different types of entrepreneurs. Some of them have built public companies. And so I'm very deeply understanding of what it takes to take an idea and turn it into a very meaningful business. And part of my personal journey, I started practicing mindfulness in 2011. And the main catalyst for me there was when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And right after my father passed away in 2016. And what I started to do was I started to text her on a daily basis, mindfulness exercises, breathing exercises, guided meditations, and encouragement as part of her diagnosis journey and her healing journey. She credits me with helping her through that. And that's where MindfulText started. I started wanting to text more folks mindfulness practices. And just a little bit more background here. In 2020, we worked with an organization, a university called Nova Southeastern University in Florida, and we paired our texting strategy with a formal mindfulness training program, a 6-week training program. And through that, I was able to show that including MindfulText into mindfulness training, we were able to significantly reduce stress, reduce mind wandering, and COVID-19 related stress. This was formally researched. The results are preliminary and not yet published, but we've taken part in 2 scientific studies now. We're working on a 3rd. And now I'm going to share some information about some of the organizations we've worked with. And this can give you an outline of how text messaging can be used with your own tools or your own phone, and just give you examples of how to think about that. So I'm just going to share a little bit about the text message space and why it's becoming more relevant. In the scientific literature, we're seeing ideas called app fatigue, Zoom fatigue, and email fatigue. There are so many more apps out there that more and more folks are seeing fatigue in having to learn new apps. And, while apps are developed to make it seamless, there is still a learning curve. And with text message, everybody knows how to use a text messaging app. And so these are some of the other benefits when you consider using text messaging with your people or your clients. There are some other impacts when you do it with a group as well. So we'll cover a little bit more about this, and I'll just go into some examples of what we did. So this is our example that I just shared with NSU. One of the biggest things that I think is a great takeaway for leveraging text message is the increase in attendance, and just a simple reminder to join a Zoom or a reminder to come to an event through text message. Either, if it's in person, then maybe an hour or 2 before, you can send a text message as a reminder. Or if it's a Zoom meeting, an hour before as well, or even 30 minutes before. That we see as significantly increasing attendance rates. People have mentioned to us that just simply getting a reminder to attend a session through text message has been a great reminder for them. Through this 6-week program, we saw a 92% retention rate. And so this is significantly higher than what we've heard from certified mindfulness professionals. What we're hearing is that there's a 15% retention and completion rate for mindfulness programs. So this, we expect that if you start leveraging text message as a daily reminder for folks, that it's going to significantly increase the retention of folks through programming. Of course, we're seeing increases in engagement and positive reports from people. Just getting those types of reminders. I'll later on in the presentation, I'll share some example text messages. But this is an overview of what we did with Nova Southeastern University for their students, faculty, and staff. We did another pilot with the Auburn University wheelchair basketball team. Something interesting to note here, as an aside, we also talked with a head of wellness for an NBA team, a professional basketball team. They did a pilot with an app, a mindfulness app that everybody knows. I won't mention their name here, but they had a 0% retention rate with that app. We did this pilot with the Auburn University wheelchair basketball team, and we had a 100% retention rate. And on top of that, they did the best in their history of ever the extension of the Auburn University's wheelchair basketball team history. They got 4th place, but we were there while they met that highest placement. And so the retention is something that we're seeing as a great North Star for how to think about using text messaging. Last case study I'll mention here, we recently did a deal with the city of Roseville. They've got about 1,400 employees, and we confirmed to train 200 of their employees through our text messaging platform. It's seeing an 85% retention rate right now, and there are opportunities for us to integrate with facilitators and teachers, and I'll share a little bit more about that. And this actually, our launch with the city of Roseville inspired an employee to launch a Mindful Mondays internal program. So that was one of the, we recently just started with them. And so this was some of the benefits that we're seeing from working with some folks. It's definitely a way to start introducing people to the concept of mindfulness and open it up to them in a way that's easy and not as intense as joining a full-fledged program initially. So that's another way to think about texting. You can start your relationships with folks through text and build them towards joining a more formal program after that. And so now I'm going to share a little bit about how we think about structuring our text messages. And so you'll be able to use this structure with WhatsApp or your own phone. I know some coaches that have one big coaching client that they work with that, you know, pays most of their bills, for example. And so you can add value to that client just by leveraging the text message channel. And so I'm going to share some examples of ways to start using that channel. And this is our structure that we typically follow. And so each week we cover a specific theme or topic. For example, one of the weeks is deep breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. We also talk about the foundational attitudes of mindfulness as well. So we take concepts and we break it into these 5 different topics. There are some other ones as well. And so I'm gonna, these are, stepping back a little bit, I have 2 free downloads that I'm going to be offering everybody in the audience of eamba here. I'll screen share these really quickly as well to explain it. One document is our text templates. There are going to be 9 different types of texts that I'll share with you that you can structure yourself and use in your own way. And I also have another document that outlines about a year's worth of content that we've developed. And so in this document, you can see how all the weeks that we've covered, and it may be able to give you inspiration in how you may promote yourself or your or how you may engage with your clients or audiences on a weekly basis. Okay, so I'm going to stop screen sharing really quick and then screen share another document to share the types of text messages. So 1 second here. Share this. Okay, so you'll be able to download this on our website. And so I'm just sharing quickly some types of texts. The first type of text that I recommend is an onboarding type of text. So just explaining to folks what to expect is important, and mentioning, for example, you'll be texting them once a week or 5 times a week or every weekday. It's helpful in increasing retention and setting the expectation. And so just a little onboarding text. For each week, you can introduce a topic. And so we use this type of text to introduce, in this week, it was responding to unpleasant emotions. This is one of the weeks that we've pulled out of our NSU program. And so I'm just going to go through some examples here. You can share videos through YouTube. And so the text message channel, it's been around for decades, but Apple and Android are investing in the experience of that. And this can be seen here. You know, you can share YouTube videos and there's an image. And so the experience is actually much better than people think. Sharing a quick exercise. This is these are the most popular types of text messages. They can be shorter as well. One of the coaches on our platform just likes to share like 1 or 2 sentence calls for mindfulness. For example, just reminding people to become aware of their physical sensations is one type of text that can be useful for folks, because, you know, as we're going throughout our day, we're not always in a mindfulness class and in that environment where we know to be mindful. As we're going to work and going through all these different ups and downs, receiving a ping to practice a micro exercise can be very helpful, and we're seeing that as a great way to engage with folks, particularly through the SMS channel. And so this is kind of a feature that MindfulText has primarily, but we have auto replies set up. So if somebody replies a keyword, they will automatically get another text message, for example. Surveys are very helpful, and I'll go over some ways to survey that can be very helpful, but through text message, the response rates for surveys are quite high. And so it really gives you the ability to hone or craft your product or service by delivering surveys through text message, and also measure the impact of your mindfulness training, which I'll get into a little bit. Science-based text. So for people new to mindfulness, leading with science or mentioning the science behind mindfulness has been very helpful. So we provide science-based texts. This is another type of exercise that was referred to us by a mindfulness facilitator, and that's just another example. We share quotes, and quotes can be very inspiring, and you can go many different ways with quotes. Encouragement is another type of text that we share, and it's really just a reminder to practice and just more notes about why it's important to practice mindfulness, specifically in alignment with the talk for the week. And so that's pretty much it. You'll have access to download this and see this, so you may try texting your clients. And I'm going to just share really quickly another document here that you'll be able to download. It is here. So this is an outline of our content that we've been working on since about 2019. We have another version of this that we're about to release, but this is the text messaging content outline that we've been working on. It's been validated by an external mindfulness organization that we work with. And so these topics, I was going to say that I've run into some organizations that are very strict with their definition of mindfulness. So definitely take our suggestions with a grain of salt. This is an ongoing experiment, and you can use this as a inspiration to create more content in the mindfulness space. And so this is just a quick overview of this, which you'll be able to download. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the original presentation really quick. Here we go. Okay, so I just went through those two documents, and I'll share more about that in a second. Okay, now for measurements. These suggestions have been very helpful for startups and entrepreneurs that I've worked with. So I recommend looking into this further, and I can share some links as well to dive more into it. But there's this idea of product market fit that I'll talk about first, and then I'll go into pre, mid, and post program surveying. These are the two types of measurements that I recommend you start doing if you haven't started doing it already. And so this surveying strategy was actually developed by a venture capital firm working with a funded startup called Superhuman. And I'll go through each question and why it's super helpful. So the first question, I'll talk through it right now. How would you feel if you could no longer use, I'll just say MindfulText? And so it categorizes people into three different categories: very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, and not disappointed. And so the idea here is that if somebody is very disappointed, they would no longer be able to use your service, is that you can segment out those folks' feedback and focus on the people that would be somewhat disappointed and not disappointed. So the idea is people that are very disappointed would if they could no longer use your service, they would still continue to buy from you. So you can deprioritize their feedback. And so the next question here, what type of people do you think would most benefit from your product or service? This question is very helpful in understanding and giving you ideas in, okay, I've delivered my service or product. What do the people that have gone through my service or product, how would they explain the audience that I should target? Because we can on our own think of the different types of audiences that we may be able to best serve, but this question specifically brings data to you from people that you are serving with their own voices on who you think that they could serve. For us, for example, we got we saw a trend in people mentioning busy people. And so that has given us ideas that in ways to target more quote unquote busy people. You may find, for example, maybe more people are mentioning lawyers are a great target for your specific product or service. And I really like this surveying structure because it can be very unique to you because you're delivering a product and service that is unique to you because you have your own personality and flair to yourself and how you bring mindfulness to the world. The next question here, what is the main benefit you receive? This can give you pointers in what you're doing right and where you may want to improve or promote more on your website, for example, and give you clues on marketing notes and strategies. And for this one, how can we improve the service for you? This can give you key examples of why the somewhat disappointed and not disappointed people, what it would take for them to be very disappointed. So the goal for this survey is to, as you ask people and cohorts of people this question, the goal is to optimize to get more people into the very disappointed bucket and focus on figuring out why the somewhat disappointed and not disappointed folks are not as disappointed if they're no longer using your service. So I really like this set of questions. It's typically for folks earlier in their journey, but it can give you a journey of entrepreneurship or bringing mindfulness to the world, but it can give you some important clues into how to serve your audience better. I recommend asking this after you can ask this after like a one coaching session, for example, or after a week, or even for folks that have gone through more of your programming. And so that's the 4 questions for product market fit that I just covered. If you search this online, these questions, there's a podcast that covers it and more information about it online. I recommend looking into this. And so this is a more technical way of surveying your folks, and it can be very helpful and is very helpful for building a case to management at large organizations. And I'll go through that in a second here. So this example here is the mindful awareness attention scale, and there are maybe a dozen mindfulness related scales that you can use. There's a link here where you can click on and go to the 15 questions here. But the idea is to measure the impact specifically of your mindfulness training. And so ideally, you would send this out before somebody receives your service so you can get a baseline of how mindful someone is. And then right after you provide them with your service, you send them the survey again. And I'll go through an example set of numbers here. So for example, if 5 people go through your program and before they score this and after they score this on average, a little bit of math here, but if you average out the program average score and it's 3.08, then you average out the post-program score, it's a 4.38. This gives you in your marketing to say that your service provides a 42% increase in mindfulness, for example. So this surveying strategy really gives you some data and evidence to say that your specific program works very well, and you can put numbers behind it. So that's pretty much it on the surveying. I recommend looking into these two and implementing these strategies or testing them out. And next here, I'm just going to go over some tools that I recommend to look into as an entrepreneur. There are hundreds and hundreds of tools that you could look at, but I'm just going to cover 3 or 4 of the top ones that I recommend looking into. Canva is very interesting, specifically because of their bulk create feature. And so I'm actually going to share my screen and show you what that looks like here on Canva. But basically, just to summarize, on a spreadsheet, if you'd like to create like 50 quotes, for example, you can put all 50 of those quotes on a spreadsheet and import that into Canva, and it will create 50 designs for you in like a minute or less, like 30 seconds. And you can use that as a way to really speed up your marketing. And so let's see, I'm just going to share my screen to show you how easy it is, and maybe it'll be helpful for folks to see the demo of what that looks like. Just to see here. So this is a design for a podcast that I'm running called the Techwanimity Podcast. We're interviewing folks in the mindfulness space, so love to connect with anybody here that's listening to that. And so in Canva, this is a paid version of Canva, but I do think that if you're more inclined to do your own marketing, I recommend looking into it. So in the app section, you can click on Book Create. Once you've chosen a design or made your own design, you can upload the CSV. And here I just have a list of 9 quotes. And from here, you can right click and connect the data to the columns. So each one of these is aligned to one of the columns on the spreadsheet. And so I'll just reconnect that. And so they're all connected. I'm going to click continue. These are some of the quotes that we collected from our podcast. And I'll just click generate. And so there are some areas where you may need to optimize each post, but basically it bulk creates content here for you. And I find that very helpful in, getting your word out there about yourself. And so that's just a quick demo of creating a bunch of content really quickly. So I'll go back to the next tool that I'm going to share here. Zapier is a very interesting tool. It's kind of technical, but I'm happy to share more about it. This automation here, for example, works very well with Canva. So say, for example, you create 50 social media posts. What you can do is work with Zapier, put that into a Google file drive, and every day it's going to take one of those files and publish one of those posts on every social media channel. So basically, if you put 50 designs from Canva into a Google Drive, it will automatically do one post a day on your social media. And so Zapier is a tool I recommend looking into. This is a sample automation that you can follow. I even added ChatGPT in here to take the title of the file and use that as inspiration to create a 1-line description of the post. And so I recommend looking into things like this and automations in general. So design and bulk creation is one type of tool that I recommend looking into. Canva is one of those. Automation tools, of course, there are a lot more coming out. My favorite one personally is Zapier because of how it works with so many different social media platforms. And while there is a little bit of technicality to this, I think that in general, it's very helpful to just start teaching yourself a little bit of this stuff. And these 2 examples are very good. If you you are very not inclined to leverage technology, there's a tool more like a marketplace called Upwork. And through this, you can basically hire anybody for a very affordable rate to do these things on Zapier and Canva for you. It's going to cost more, but there are folks where you can go on Upwork and you can hire like a freelance person for relatively cheap to do things like this for you. So you can spend more time serving your clients. So those are some of the top tools that I recommend. And lastly, I'll mention a little bit about MindfulText. We focus specifically on delivering mindfulness through text message. And so this is just a snapshot of our platform. You can organize content on our platform and schedule those out for a very extended period of time. And you can direct message folks, and there's a team management abilities and some light analytics. And so that's pretty much it. The last thing I'll mention is that if you are interested in talking with us at MindfulText, you can go to mindfultext.com/eamba, and there'll be a form in the beginning where you can choose how or choose ways that you may want to work with us. You can also input something else in there, but just to overview that, we are open to co-creating a mindful text program with your strategy and pitching that to organizations that we work with and organizations that you may want to target. We also have a revenue share opportunity. So if you want to share MindfulText with your audience, put them through a year-long program, we can do a revenue share. There's more details on that on eamba on our link here. And if you'd like to just use our platform however you'd like, that's not yet available, but we're collecting submissions for that if that's interesting to you. And that's pretty much it. I hope this is useful for everybody that listens.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Let's open up to a dialogue. I think summarizing, there are 4 major points. The first is the one that engages people. You send SMS to engage people, right? So that's the first SMS function. But you are the other 2, the survey, the grow customers and the surveys to have data for talking with decision makers. Are they part of sending the SMS messages, or is that a separate thing that you do afterwards?
So one thing that we've found very helpful specifically for Nova Southeastern University, because as part of a formal research study, there are a lot more survey questions that folks need to answer. And so not all the questions can be answered through text message, but the reminders to complete those surveys can be sent through text message. So there are, for example, the Mindful Awareness Attention Scale survey, that would be best delivered through a surveying tool like Google Forms or Typeform, just because it's longer. And
wait, please, wait.
yes,
that's the technical part. I mean the communication part. So you engage your participants because you want to support that they practice, okay? And you have those 5 steps. You introduce a topic, you send some information, you send a quote, you maybe send an engaging information about research, and then there was a 5th. Within that frame of 5 days, every day something else, is that where you also put the SMS to ask existing customers, those who are following your SMS program or whatever, no, you're following your program and who you engage with SMS, you also put the research questions there?
You can. ask questions to supplement your existing research. Where I recommend putting the, for example, mindfulness awareness attention scale survey is at the beginning and at the end, so that you have a baseline of the level of mindfulness of an individual before doing any of your services or programming, and then after at the end. And so that the first survey can be sent through email or text message as a reminder in the first week, for example, please complete this this scale so we can get a baseline of your.
Many teachers are that. So it's not part of the 5 steps per topic, correct?
You can get a, so what we did with Nova Southeastern University, for example, is once a week we asked a question of where folks' mind was at once a week. So there was a question, it's in the template text messages actually. We asked, this was specifically for measuring mind wandering. And so this can be a type of text survey where if you're specifically measuring a specific outcome, such as mind wandering or stress, you can take a pulse of how they're feeling through text message. Since it's one question, it's the same question every week. In the case that is in the template, it's about mind wandering. And the question we asked was basically, where is your state of mind currently? And the options were thinking about a negative thought, thinking about a positive thought, thinking about a neutral thought. And there were a couple other options there, but there are ways to supplement your measurement and reporting strategies through text message, yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking to structure this in a clear way. The first part, the engaging SMS messages, are meant to help our participants practice. The second part that you presented is to find out how effective the delivery is. And it is for research purposes. So if a teacher only wants to engage her or his students, that's the first part. And then you have a third part where you survey the outcome, which you then use to convince decision makers. And the fourth part of your presentation today was something else, was presenting a few tools, because we talked about the possibility of sharing some tools, and we will share a longer list to share with teachers what kind of tools would be helpful for their work. But there are 3 or 4 different functions here that you covered in a time frame of less than 30 minutes, correct?
I think I might have went over a little bit, but yes, definitely, yeah, about 30 minutes.
So maybe let's look at the questions and the feedback separated to those 4 items.
Sure.
Are any one of you already using messages that you send after a training in the same week, like something by email or something by SMS? Then you know how much work it is, because I used to do that. Yeah, Ellen, please.
Well, yeah, I send an email immediately after the session with, if I've been using slides, then there'll be copies of the slides, references, things like that. I normally teach on a Thursday evening, and on Sunday morning, participants get another email reminding them what I've asked them to do between the sessions. So it might be, have you started the body scan yet, and how are you finding it, or something like that. But I use the same emails all the time, so I just pull them down and put the group, just address it to the group, all their email addresses. So it's become not a great deal of work since I first created them all. Though I do change them, adapt them a little bit each time I run the course, because my ideas change and things move on. That makes sense? Yeah. You're muted.
So you send one immediately, promised resources, and you send a
Yeah.
reminder 2 days later, 3 days later.
Yeah, I also send a reminder on the morning of the session that the session's happening at 6:30 this evening, and here's the Zoom link. So that's just the prompt.
So
But I might,
three of
and
what,
Mark suggested I might add it and start. Sorry, say that again, please.
no, 3 of the moments that Mark indicated, you are already using them.
Yeah, I guess, and I always have a quote as well in each of the emails that I send, and I was just thinking maybe I'll send that separately, send the quote by text some other point in the week, just to retain that connection with people, I think. And I do get some good feedback on people say how well it was, they felt connected throughout the entire course. It wasn't just coming on one evening a week.
Yeah, that's the same experience that you're describing, Mark, aren't you?
Yes, it definitely helps with building the habit. And this is something that we're working to prove further with research. Is how can we actually help folks build a long-term habit of mindfulness?
Yeah.
So, Ellen, do you invest in that after they followed your course, that you continue to send them something to help them build this habit Mark is talking about?
No, not really. And I've been thinking while Mark's been talking about whether I might introduce something like that, because I do keep contact with people because they're invited to join a weekly meditation group just for 30 minutes. So some people come and some people don't, but yeah. So they get an email every week reminding them that the session is happening on the Monday evening. And I could put things, just thinking I could put things into that email.
Extra reminders are definitely, I'm sorry, I'm just going to mention that extra reminders can feel like you're potentially annoying people with too many reminders. But in our case, we've even got people that want even more reminders than just one text reminder. And so I recommend testing out just adding more reminders in general throughout your program process.
Yeah.
Magdalena, do you use any reminders in any form?
Not really. I was just sending the material and some videos and something like that. But I'm just thinking I'm starting the group with students soon, and just thinking over how to use these new informations to make an experiment, and also ask them how do you find it? Is it too much or too little, or is it annoying or not? So you just gave me the idea what to do with the next group. And as they are students, I hope they will be keen to do the experiment with me.
And Magdalena, Mark just offered you the possibility to experiment. He even encouraged us, experiment, find out for yourself.
Yeah.
And Daniela, are you using any in-between messages to bond, to connect, to reinforce?
Yeah, in MBSR program in the 8 weeks, there are definitely those email sequences. I have already stored them and was eager to automate them. In other programs, there's a challenge, and then the participants can they have that starts always a 2-day class training and then 4-week and in this challenge, in these 4 weeks, they receive weekly or daily emails, and they can choose which kind of frequency they prefer. And what, yeah, so this is what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah.
And when you talk about automation, you said you're thinking about automating that. Anything you would like to share, or what kind of thoughts you have that maybe Mark could feedback on?
Now I have already a subscription for in English it's Active Campaign, which allows all the automation and the sequences within. Yeah, it's in the beginning some bulk of work, but afterwards I can copy and paste it for each cohort and adapt. Basically, yeah, there are many ways, and actually, I'm also looking more into platforms which are community-based, where people can share, and that I'm not only the sender, but they also can interact. I found this approach, so I'm wondering, Mark, I hear lots of sending messages, and yeah, what happens to the responses? What is the experience there when people send back questions? Do they respond? What's the responsibility? Yeah, how is the interaction and the relation with the teacher? Because this is only one-on-one connection and not in between connection with the group. It's teacher with and other teachers spoiled with messages. So how's this work?
I can share a little bit about that, and I'll also share that we are working on some community-based features. I can't share too much about it right now, but that's something we're definitely working on. And with text messaging, there is a section to message a facilitator directly. So right now we're managing the notifications, and if somebody requests to speak with a facilitator, then that facilitator can log into MindfulText and continue in a dialogue. There currently is no group functionality outside of everybody receiving the same text message. And the main area that we work with facilitators is that they can log in and have communications with folks through text message and answer any questions and follow up on the practice through direct messaging. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Active Campaign. One of the things that I'll mention about Active Campaign is that their text messaging costs are very inflated. And so that's one thing to consider when using a service like Active Campaign along with text message. I don't know the extent of all their automation capabilities, but I do know that SMS is integrated into Active Campaign. So it's definitely one way to consolidate your email and text message strategy. I do know that it's quite a bit more expensive than many other platforms.
Yeah, which is also an issue because we are trying to make things more economic.
And by the way, we can integrate with Active Campaign through Zapier. So if somebody submits a form and starts to receive emails, that can communicate with MindfulText and put them into a journey.
Mm-hmm. But why would you do that? I'm thinking aloud. Why would you do that? Because you already have it in MindfulText, and you could integrate that with the other options. So I don't know Active Campaign, so probably that is why I don't know what you do. Why would you do that?
It's kind of like an email system like MailChimp. So it manages email automation and some text automation. And the reason why we connect with Active Campaign and email service providers is because if somebody submits a form to start receiving emails from you, you can also launch them to receive text messages at the same time. And so it's very helpful to, as you're onboarding folks, put them into the funnel of text messaging and your email communication reminders at the same time, if they opt into that.
Mhm. Okay. So when I listen to this, it becomes interesting once you have larger numbers of people that you're addressing in order to make a funnel of leads. Is that correct?
Yes. Another thing that's coming to mind is that there's a company called Talkspace. And last I checked online, they're charging about $200 a person per month to receive unlimited texting with a therapist. And so that kind of outlines the value that can be received if you invest more into communicating to your clients through text message. And opening that channel of text message to your clients can be worth and is worth right now about $200 a month when you're thinking about a platform like Talkspace.
Mhm. Okay, I'm trying to go into the dialogue where we look at the value and then maybe return back to the tools. The main value we want, two main values: attract more clients, and when they're there, engage them more so they practice. Do you use the whole platform that you are offering for those two things, or can you like use it in a modular way?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, you can use them both ways. So there are texting services like ours where they deliver purely a text-based program. What we're finding is that there's definitely a much deeper relationship that can be built if there's a facilitator involved, as well as if it's part of a more formal program that meets, for example, once a week. So there are different levels of programming that different groups of people in different parts of their lives may be more receptible to. Some folks are ready to dive into a 6-week, 8-week mindfulness program. Others are in a place where maybe they're hyper busy and all they can do right now is start to receive text message reminders or email reminders to help them start integrating the practice. And so there's definitely parts to it. You can start off with purely text messaging and then start adding more to different segments of your user base as they want and need more or less.
Okay, so it could also be a stepping stone to interest them to take for example, Daniela's MBSR program, because they are not yet ready to commit to the full 8-week. So Daniela could use the text messages to give them a taster of what they could expect when they take the full program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Daniela, are you using the other tool that what is it called? Active Campaign, already to funnel clients to your services?
Yeah, I've set it up. On my website, people can sign up for waiting lists. I'm collecting those people. And so there are different approaches. Also, the contact is coming in and collecting data. But my website is still in the baby shoes, but it's not visited much. So I have to do the front work with all the marketing, so. And this is the same what I'm also wondering. I'm already happy to have a bunch of email addresses and contacts, and even with LinkedIn, the followers number is quite high. It's easier for me to get email addresses at the moment than telephone numbers. So what's your advice on this, Mark?
Yeah, that's normal. And what you can expect is that if somebody gives you their phone number, then that's essentially, they're giving you more access to communicate to them. And so I would bucket the folks that you have their phone numbers in as folks that you can build a deeper relationship with. And so you can communicate with those folks differently, more personally, more often, for example.
Well, this is time consuming, right? if you look to it's, yeah, if you're in a business to consumer environment, then yeah, this is one to many relationships where you start texting, and honestly, I don't like texting. This is the last thing I do. So I'm quite a minimalist in texting personally. So also chatting and all the things. So
well, that's another use case to potentially leverage MindfulText, because we basically help automate all the text messaging. And for the folks that do like text messaging, then you've basically covered serving them. And there's this concept, for example, called omnichannel presence. And so because there are so many communication platforms out there, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram has its own business functionality where you can even set meetings on there. Everybody now, I'm seeing, at least from my perspective, is they're getting sucked into using specific communication platforms. I know of a big tech company that all their employees, they communicate over Instagram stories and Instagram messaging, for example. When I started to work with them, they're like, oh, connect with me on Instagram. They're all just communicating with each other on Instagram. And so depending on where your audience is and the type of audience that you want to serve, if it's students, for example, there's a higher likelihood of their acceptance rate of wanting to be text message, for example. Depending on the type of audience that you want to serve and their typical mode of operation, even specific organizations like the one I mentioned, there may be specific channels that are best used to serve specific audiences.
When you talk about it's a lot of work, Daniela, I also heard you say the word automate. So I personally would love to automate all the things that I don't like. So if SMS would work and you don't like it, then the best thing is to automate it. Is there any research, Mark, on, well, probably answer that with the last your remark you said. What I wanted to ask, whether there's any research on the effectiveness of the different channels. But that's probably a too general question, because it depends on the audience, who is using which channel. And it's probably that you need to find what your recipient wants, instead of sending just what you want to send.
There is research on about social media. Of course, we've heard that social media has been detrimental to mental health. And so I don't recommend folks using Instagram to communicate with their people, for example, because of the distraction that's on Instagram. There is growing research specifically on the text message channel. We're contributing to this at MindfulText, and there are also other organizations that we've talked to that have done research on this. For example, in the healthcare space, text messaging patients there was, I forget the exact percentage, but there was something like a double-digit increase in patient outcomes from communicating with patients before and after being diagnosed, for example. So there is research on specifically text messaging, quite a bit actually, not specifically related to mindfulness, but text messaging in general is a channel that has been researched.
Yeah, I get it, what you just said, because if you get on Instagram, you have more distraction than going on your SMS on your phone. You will not have as many SMS messages as you could have if you go on any social media platform. Daniela, do you integrate your active campaign with other instruments, with social media, for example, or with I don't know what other stuff?
At the moment, it's linked with my website. Yeah.
Okay. Did you say link to your website or LinkedIn?
Website. Website.
Your website. Okay.
Connected to my website, yeah. Mhm.
Did you hear more things that would be valuable for you to consider?
And with Mark?
Mhm.
I just downloaded the templates. I was curious of the content. I was also curious about
That's a good sign. Curiosity is what we are breeding. As teachers, we want our students to be curious about their own experience. So that's wonderful. So Mark, the first download.
Sorry?
This is the first download of Daniela.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Daniela. If there's any feedback or thoughts that you'd like to share, happy to share more about what we're up to. We're generally very passionate about bringing more mindfulness to the world. Part of the reason why I got into it. So we're very helpful of others also working on bringing mindfulness to the world. And so I'm happy to chat further and share best practices. We do this all the time in the entrepreneurial spaces that I work in. It's very much a pay it forward type of mentality. And so I'm very happy to communicate with folks that listen to this. If they'd like to reach out on LinkedIn or through email, happy to share as much as I can.
Thank you. Appreciate
Well,
it.
Magdalena, that's an invitation also for you when you experiment with your students.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of it. I mean, I just didn't think about it at all. It's all new to me, and I'm not so at home with all this technology. But these students are. So I'm just thinking how to use their knowledge and combine with what I'm offering, so we can really make something different in this little this little faculty which I will be working on. And
Even
making
just
them
a
a
group
group,
text.
making them a group. Yeah, no, something. I'm just so confused now, but think I will do this course a little bit differently than I previously thought. Thank you.
Very cool.
Mark,
Yeah.
any advice for Magdalena on how to get started on this? So not to make it overwhelming, but to immediately experience that something is working, because that's very motivating.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're going to be using a service like WhatsApp, you can, or text, you can put everyone into a group. I'm just thinking of the simplest way to start texting folks. And I wouldn't necessarily start texting every day, because that would create a lot of work in creating the content, unless that's something you specifically would like to test. But the first type of reminder that I would recommend is to join the session. And just a reminder, when I imagine your programming includes a weekly meeting of some sort, for example. Just a reminder to go to that once or twice a week is going to increase attendance. And so that's what I recommend as a focus. And then part of that, I imagine there's going to be some homework involved outside of the meeting. And just a reminder to do the homework. One other thing I forgot to mention, actually, through our research with Nova Southeastern University, they're specifically measuring the impact of mindfulness. And there were two of the strongest indicators in if people did them, then it was a very strong indicator that they would benefit. And those two are practice time and attendance. So the more people showed up to the event, there was a direct correlation with benefiting from mindfulness. And so attendance is one, and the amount of times that they practiced outside of the meeting. So if they did For example, once a day, a 20-minute guided meditation versus once a week. The people that practiced more, of course, doing the guided meditation received more benefit from mindfulness. So reminding folks to do the practice is a sure way to increase the impact, the positive impact of your programming.
Great. Thank you for your advice.
Cool. Well, we're a little bit past 11 here.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I was able to share with you all some experiences here. Happy to connect further. And yeah.
It will be, your information will be in the LinkedIn group. So Magdalena, Daniela, if you want to connect or download, the information will still be there. Mark, you will post it after this meeting, correct?
I'll connect with you on which LinkedIn group specifically to post it in. But yes, we'll post it there.
Yeah, the eamba group. Yeah. So sorry for going a bit over time, but thank you for your interest. Thank you, Mark, for sharing all your experience and your knowledge. It's been great to have you here. So let's connect afterwards. I will stop the recording and then maybe